Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Tonnessen, and I would like to welcome you to the third episode of Design by Kelly's podcast, Coffee Chats with Kelly. Today, we are joined by Pastor Moore, the pastor of Truvine Missionary Baptist Church in Spring, Texas. Pastor Moore has been working with Design by Kelly for over 3 years now, and he was actually our second client. So grab your coffee and join us. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the founder and CEO of Design by Kelly, Kelly Thomas.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
And our guest for this month, Pastor Moore. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
We're going to start off with a few questions. I was just wondering to start off, when and how did you start Truvine Missionary Baptist Church?
Well, it's a great story there. I am actually the 13th pastor there, and our church is 119 years old.
Wow.
Yes. So I followed lots of men. In fact, I was pretty close with my predecessor there. I succeeded him, and next year will be 10 years, but the church will be 120 years old next year.
That's really awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what has been your main goal since taking over?
When I think about people's strengths, there's some people that are visionaries. There's some people that kind of like to have the, they maintain. I think I'm sometimes in the middle. I think for us, we had a good core of people, and my job was to make them more integrated into the life of the church. And I just believe a lot of times in, I guess, in inorganic growth. We didn't do mailings and things like that. Again, it's an old church.
Yeah.
One of the challenges I would say was where it was deeply rooted in the neighborhood. Once that neighborhood changed, it became more of a community church. So I think maintaining our connections to the neighborhood while being welcoming to people outside the neighborhood is really what I've been working toward.
That's really great. And I've noticed while staying on that topic of connecting with the neighborhood, Truvine is currently hosting a children's band camp. Have you done events like that before in the past? And how have they basically affected your attendance for like children in your church?
It's interesting because children tend to be, for us, a leading indicator of how well things are going. When we first got really plugged back in after the pandemic, it was when people started bringing their kids to church that we knew that everything was going to be fine. And at our church, in fact, a few years ago, we had some of our young adults that had hosted like a day camp for like, a week was like less than $100, something like that. Because we just really thought that would be a good way to serve our parents. Find things for kids to do in the summer is always a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you find it, can you afford it? So we were trying to address both those issues. I think Kelly was on a call with us, and one of the things I talked about was when I grew up in church, the church was a place you got to learn how to do stuff. And we have a very strong music team. In fact, the person that's running our camp is faculty, had been faculty at a local university. And he teaches at a school, and he does private instruction. So he was really ideal for that kind of thing. And he saw the same need as well. So we just try stuff, we see what happens. But for us, I just really believe, especially in the community I grew up in, the church filled the gap for areas that other people just couldn't do it. So it was more than just a place where we went to church and learned 10 Commandments. It was, every Easter you did some stuff. You learned how to speak in public, and then you learn things about growing and succession planning. My daughter, when we got to the church, my daughter was in children's church. Well, now she's 25, and she's one of the people that helps run children's church.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, so I think for us, it's really about watching people grow and giving them various opportunities to see what they can do. So.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really awesome. That's great. And aside from those events, I also noticed that on your website and your social media, you have some free resources that are available, basically tackling some like tough questions about life, religion, those sort of things. When did you start these blogs?
Um, Probably right before the pandemic started, there were a couple of things that I noticed, and they just kind of merged together. The first one was that people just have questions,
Yeah.
and a lot of the young people in my life, this is the kind of stuff they ask me. But some people are never going to be comfortable asking you, and so I just started putting those out there um, because I knew, typically if one person has that question, uh, there's 10 other people that probably have the same question.
Yeah.
So and secondly, I didn't want people to feel like they had to call me or know me or come to our church for that matter to be able to deal with those kinds of things. And I think that post-pandemic, churches will have to equip people in ways other than hoping they come to our buildings, because some people have been successful getting people to return, not everyone has, but the needs are still there.
Mhm.
So I just use the website as an extension of the craziness that goes on in my brain oftentimes and say, hey, if a person calls me and asks me a question, a lot of times I say, well, I think about how I answered it, and I just turn around and write it down and send it in, and that's usually what happens.
Yeah. That's really awesome. We're going to move on. Kelly, did you have some questions as well?
Yeah, so we've been working together for, gosh, about 3 years now.
Yeah.
So what were your main goals when first working with us, and did those change as we worked together over time?
Yes. We were using a templated website when we first called you. And it was just, I think if we were set up in a different way, it probably would have worked fine, but we weren't. We just really needed someone that could manage it. But what I really cared about um, was someone that understood small churches, they could work with small churches, and someone that the things I like about a small business. You get personal touch, and you get things tend to be more custom, and they answer your questions. It's not one size fits all. So for us, it was really that we just needed a website that represented us um, according to actually who we were. And I think the other thing too is we really like working with small businesses. I think almost everybody we work with is a small business. Unless we have to, we tend to work with small businesses because, and in the church world, that's what we would be considered.
Right. Right.
So that's what a lot of it was for us.
So has working with Design by Kelly impacted your church as a whole in any way?
Absolutely. Well, there are a couple of things that jump out. One, I get the statistics every month, and the website you did for us does much better than the one we had before. I look at the heat map. So I'm bivocational and I work in technology, so that kind of stuff, I like that kind of stuff. So it does better. I think secondly, everybody in the church kind of knows who you are. So so they'll sit there and they're like, well, maybe Kelly can do that for us. So you just ghost hanging over the church, kind of because we talk about whenever we have meetings, and every time we get ready to do something, after I come up with something really ridiculous, they say, well, we need to call it, we need to let Kelly know so she can make this for us and stuff like that. So it's kind of like Charlie on Charlie's Angels. That's who you are, right?
I'm going to have to come visit sometime so they know who I am, huh?
Sure. Because when I say that's Kelly, they be like, oh. So I think in terms of how the website really drives traffic, and it does. I ask the question often when, so you just redesign our visitors cards, and those work really well. So I think it's not just for us. It's not just the website which drives traffic, and I know it does because when people come to visit, I ask them how they find us. And probably eight out of 10 say we found you on Google. And the website clearly doesn't scare them off because it does that. So I think the second thing too is a good chunk of what you do for us too is also, design elements. That's actually how we started with the graphics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it was the graphics first. And I one of the things I had been trying to get the church to understand was, in this area, anybody can buy a Mac and download a package and think that they're a designer. And I think one thing that you helped me with, Kelly, was helping people understand why they shouldn't do that. Because there were things that I would ask you for and you pushed back, which I was happy about. You said you shouldn't do that. It's too much text. You shouldn't have this on the line. And you shouldn't have these many fonts and things like that. And I would turn right around and go tell them that, right? Like that, there are rules to this. And so they were like, oh, okay, well, we'll just ask her. So I think it was, obviously it was the piece about helping our church put a better foot forward. But I think secondly, what you did was help our church understand why these things mattered. Like why it was very important not to put a bad graphic out there.
Right.
And things like that. So
yeah. I actually very clearly remember our first meeting. You were my second client, so it just stands out. But I remember talking specifically with you about graphics because I think you were very nervous about hiring me at first because you wanted a particular look, which I get, people do. But I'm guessing I did a good job because you've kept me for 3 years. So I do remember that.
I think I was nervous because I just hadn't done it before.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't, I think sometimes, so I think the thing about me is I just believe in expertise. I know I didn't have it, so part of it for me was thinking, okay, I want to work with her, but I got to turn around and sell this idea because, I think the thing I was more nervous about wasn't your skill. Just historically, our church hadn't put budget for those kind of things.
Right.
That's how a lot of times the bad graphics end up out there because somebody and they'll do it for like $5 or they'll do it for free because they're trying to get their names out there. But for us to be able to put, just dollars and budget to it was really something that we had never done. I was more nervous about that. But the good news is that I think that people kind of understand some things differently now. When you have people, I hate to think about it this way, but it's the only metric that I can think about. If your website is lead generation, so to speak, and what we do and the kind of people we are, is really kind of closing. There are real tangible financial benefits for us working with you. Because the people who come to see us wouldn't have been there. We're not on a main thoroughfare. We're tucked off in a road that for a long time was really kind of dead-ended. It doesn't lead any place. So if you come to our church, you have to be coming there for a reason. You don't just drive through. Right. Maybe now since 99 has opened up, but before, if you came in that neighborhood, you came there for a reason. So people had to want to be there. They probably passed 6 or 7 churches on their way to seeing us.
Yeah.
And so our website was at least a reason for people to give us a shot. So I think in the first year, it's paid multiples in terms of dividends, in terms of our outreach to people.
Yeah, yeah. So a few months ago, you had sent me a picture through text on a Sunday afternoon because you were so excited about all these visitors you had had.
Yes.
And I know you mentioned a lot of them had come through social media. So another big piece that we do for you is we do manage your social media. So how has that made a difference for you as a church?
The social media, most of the stuff that we put on social media is not so much events, it's usually the questions and things like that. The most visited page on our website is a blog post about how to pray for your prodigal. far and away the most visited page. And I just believe that a lot of people almost say, if they're thinking about stuff like that, let me go see what they're talking about. And I've had people, reference that to me. I do the benediction from the back door, and I talk to people, and they'll say, I really want to talk to you about that post you made, or I got some questions about the answer you made. Some people will sit through the whole service just so they can ask me about an Instagram post that I made 2 weeks ago, and then they come back, and some don't. But I think that I don't think that we've ever had anyone say, you guys weren't what we expected. I think that because you know what you never want? You never want posts that give an inaccurate reflection about who you are. You have this really great social media feed, this really great website, and then when people get there, it's like this, but it's not who these people are. So I think for us, what was really important was the social media posts actually prepare people for who we were. We don't get a lot of likes and shares, but the people who do see them tell me they do. And that doesn't really, I wasn't in it to go viral. It was really about putting that out there just as something for people to think about. But people do tell me. I would say now the data is starting to skew that Instagram is probably right behind the website now in terms of why people come see us.
That's awesome. So what would your advice be to other pastors and churches who are undecided on whether or not their website or social media is important for a small church?
I would say, I just don't think they can afford to not do it. When you're talking about multi-generational church, I'm not saying that you have to jump out there and have a TikTok page and a Twitter account, but I do think that you have to recognize that your people are consumers of this media at all age groups. The one thing that happened during the pandemic was people who were not as computer literate got to be that way. Mm-hmm. We still have some events that are still Zoom only, and they're mostly for our older members. Right. And so we've trained people to do things a different way. And I think that people, almost everybody I know, except if it's word of mouth, is going to, if you tell somebody about a church, first thing they're going to say is, what's their website? Let me go check them out. Let's see if they're on social media feed. And if you don't have anything, I don't think they will take you seriously. Because that's how people find out everything. If you're going to go to a restaurant, you look at the menu before you show up. I think that's just, before you even get to looking at reviews. I think that pastors need to do that. I also think that pastors need to keep an eye out on their Google reviews as well, because people look at that.
Yeah.
And so, and I think they may be intimidated by it, but I think using a service like yours, and in particular your service, you've dealt with all of us because we had all those fears already. And you know what to tell us, and it works because we're still, like you said, we're still here. We're still expanding our services and things like that. I just can't see how they could be. It's not that they won't survive, because that stuff is really up to God at the end of the day. But I think that if you have something going on that people should know about, that is the avenue which you reach them. Word of mouth, people aren't that way anymore, where they're in large groups and they just share their experiences. They share their experiences by saying things on the phone and leaving reviews. And so, in fact, I just had some of my members fuss at me Saturday at a new members class, because I have rebelled for years about putting my bio on the website. And they were giving it to me, we need to know, people need to know that stuff. And then they went on to tell me how they find churches. And one couple told me that, we came and we were kind of, we saw what we liked on the website, but there really wasn't a whole lot about you. So we were a little tentative when we got there. And then we were pleasantly surprised. And then another couple told me, yeah, we were in Los Angeles and we picked our church because of the website and all the information they had. And so, that went on for like 30 minutes and they blooded me up pretty good. So you should be getting an update soon from me about that. But that was what I was hearing, was confirmation about how necessary it is. Mm-hmm. Remember, it wasn't even for me that I didn't have a good site. There just wasn't a page about me. Yeah. And that was enough for them to not show up.
Wow. Yeah, people are looking for that authenticity in the story. Mm-hmm. So I can see that, yeah.
Well, in the spirit of growth and everything going on with your church and how your website has helped you guys out, I was wondering, what does the future hold for Truvine Missionary Baptist? Like, do you have anything big planned for the next coming years?
We are trying to do, well, we've outgrown our facilities.
Okay.
We're trying to get a renovation project going. It's tough sledding right now because for any number of reasons, but we're trying to get that going because our website works well, but then our facilities are working against us. Parking, places to sit. So that's probably the biggest thing in front of us. I think in addition to that, I think one of the things that we really want to do, I think one of the things the pandemic taught me was the importance of keeping people rooted and grounded in what's going on, because some people that just fell off during the pandemic, they weren't bad people. They just built different habits. Mm-hmm. So if there's one thing that we learned, was that this could certainly happen again. And I think one thing we have to do is think about how to keep our people rooted and centered and grounded in the faith, and how does our website help that? So I think for us in the future, we're probably going to put more energy into resources so that people can get what they need without necessarily coming on campus or calling me or calling someone else. Mm-hmm. So they can, remain engaged or engage in some things on a timetable that's more conducive to them.
That's good.
That's really awesome to hear.
Well, I have greatly enjoyed working with you for the last 3 years, and mm-hmm. I'm looking for years to come, I hope, with you. But as a thank you for joining us today, I'm going to be sending your way your own little Design by Kelly coffee tumbler for joining us today. Awesome. So that's going to be coming your way. Before we go, take a minute to tell everybody on here where they can find your church, what time your services are, and how they could come join you if they wanted to.
Yes. As we said earlier, Truvine Missionary Baptist Church, we are in right near Old Town Spring, 27307 Oak Street, Spring, Texas, 77373. And again, we've been there for, I think you will be pleasantly surprised at how warm and friendly we are, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us through our website, www.truvinespring.org.
Thank you so much. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today for this episode of Coffee Chats with Kelly. We invite you to visit our website, designedbykelly.org, to check out our portfolio, and also to check out our Canva template shop to start your web design journey. And thank you, Kelly, and thank you so much, Pastor Moore.
You're welcome.